Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're breaking down the notoriously complex mechanics of the stock market. But look, we are just going to stare at boring financial charts. No way. We're going to frame this entire thing as a brutal survival mission outside the walls. Imagine stepping into a completely wild territory ruled by massive giants. To survive out there, even a 14-year-old scout needs the absolute best training in a language that actually makes sense. And that's exactly what we're going to provide today. So let's dive right in. Right off the bat, I want to hook you with a stark reality check straight from our source material. It says, essentially, there is no magic wand and no holy grail for a 100% win rate, period. In the market, you're playing a massive game of probabilities. If you come in looking for a get-rich-quick scheme, you are absolutely going to get eaten alive. You just have to accept right now that taking some losses is simply part of survival. Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? If the market is a completely chaotic battlefield controlled by giant, unpredictable forces, how do you actually survive? Well, you can't control the giants, but you can control your gear, your map, and most importantly, your mind. We need the right equipment and the right training to stay alive when things inevitably go wrong. To get prepared, we have to look at how humans actually learn. Just reading a survival manual or passively listening to someone talk, that only gives you like a 10 to 20% retention rate. To survive like a true frontline scout, reading just isn't going to cut it. You need real experience and simulation. That massive 90% retention rate comes from actually practicing in the field, taking small falls, actively managing your risks, and learning how to get back up.
So here is your quick mission briefing. We're covering 5 key areas. First, the brutal battlefield. Second, survival gear. Third, the cloud map. Fourth, giant traps. And finally, iron discipline. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The brutal battlefield.
The very first thing any young scout needs to understand is that the market never, ever moves in a straight line. It moves in what we call market waves. Think of it like breathing. In a winning battle, you have these really long, impulsive forward attacks, and they're followed by short, defensive retreats just to rest and catch your breath. To survive out there, you have to ride these natural waves, not exhaust yourself fighting against them.
Moving on to Section 2, Survival Gear.
All right, let's talk about candlesticks. These are basically the real-time heartbeat of the battle. A green or bullish candle simply means the buyers are winning right now. The price closed higher than it started. Simple, right? A red or bearish candle means the sellers took control and pushed the price down. It's like a giant game of tug-of-war, and these candles tell you exactly which side is pulling harder at any given moment. Next up in your toolkit, we have trend lines. Think of these as your grappling hooks and safety tethers. To figure out which way the primary battle is moving, you just connect the lowest valleys in an upward fight, or the highest peaks if the fight is pushing downward. But hey, keep it incredibly simple. Never clutter your map with more than 2 pairs of lines. And make sure your line hugs the outside of the price action. It shouldn't be cutting right through the middle of the battle.
And then we have the breakout. This is a massive, completely decisive move that violently shatters that trend line you drew. When a breakout happens with strong momentum, like a giant literally smashing through a brick wall, it's a massive flashing signal that the entire tide of the battle has turned. You have to be ready to shift your strategy the second that happens.
Section 3. The cloud map.
Okay, so this represents an advanced radar system called the Ichimoku Cloud. We are going to skip all the complicated math here to keep things super simple, like a 14-year-old could master it. Rule number 1, never fight inside the cloud. It is pure, unpredictable chaos, kind of like being trapped in a glass jar while a giant shakes it. You want to buy when the price breaks out above the cloud. That means clear skies and relative safety. And always beware of a completely flat cloud ahead of you. It acts just like a giant magnet, pulling a runaway price right back down.
Within this cloud map, you need to pay special attention to the Kijun Sen, or the standard line. Just think of this line as the center of gravity for the market. If your price flies up way too high and way too fast, creating this massive, unsustainable imbalance, this line acts as a heavy tether. It will inevitably pull the price right back down to rest and stabilize.
We also need to equip our Fibonacci tool. Now, the name sounds super complicated, but honestly, it's really just a way to predict exactly where the market is going to rest and refuel. Step 1, find the absolute highest and lowest point of a wave. Step 2, literally just connect them. This reveals invisible magnetic zones. In a strong upward battle, you just watch for the price to drop back to the 38.2% or 50% zone. That is usually exactly where the market takes a quick breath before launching its next big attack.
All right, Section 4, Giant Traps.
You see, not every breakout is real. You have to constantly be on the lookout for the fake-out. This is a highly deliberate, deceptive trap set by the market giants. They push the price up just enough to lure all these overeager amateurs in, making them think a massive run is starting, and then boom, they violently reverse the price downwards within just 1 or 2 candles, completely consuming those unsuspecting retail traders.
There is a stark difference between those who get eaten by the market and those who actually survive. The amateur scout rushes in on a single, unconfirmed signal. They hear some great breaking news, and they buy at the absolute top of the peak. The veteran survivor, on the other hand, has discipline. They wait for a second candle just to confirm the move is real, and they totally ignore overly positive news when prices are already peaking because they know it's almost certainly a trap.
This timeline here tracks the psychological cycle of a trader. It shows you exactly how human emotion leads people straight into the jaws of defeat. You start with doubt, then you move to hope, and eventually it peaks at euphoria. Now listen to me, euphoria is maximum danger. That's when literally everyone is buying and the news is just perfect. Then comes the sudden panic, leading straight down into depression. But here is the ultimate veteran's secret. Depression is actually the ultimate opportunity. Why? Because that's when prices are the lowest and everyone else has given up.
Finally, Section 5, Iron Discipline.
90%. That is a massive, incredibly sobering number. Our source material emphasizes that a staggering 90% of traders fail. And the crazy thing? They don't fail because they lack the right gear or a good map. They fail because their own psychology betrays them. They buy at the euphoric top out of pure greed, and they panic sell at the depressed bottom out of absolute fear. It's human nature working against you.
So, what is the mental armor actually required to survive? First, never throw more money into a losing battle. Do not average down. Second, you absolutely must accept small, strategic losses by using a stop loss. This prevents a total, catastrophic wipeout of your account. Third, you have to train yourself to overcome the freeze response. When a trade goes wrong, amateurs freeze up like a deer in headlights. You have to act. And finally, always remember, there are no permanently good or bad stocks. There are only rising and falling prices.
If you take away just one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this massive, bold rule of survival. Keep a cold head or burn your account. Emotions are the absolute enemy of longevity out there. If you let fear or greed pilot your decisions, the market giants will wipe out everything you've built. Logic and cold, hard discipline must dictate every single move you make.
So look at what we've covered. The battlefield waves, the candlestick heartbeat, the invisible magnetic zones of the cloud map, the deadly traps set by giants, and the absolute necessity of keeping a cold head. We broke this all down so simply that a 14-year-old could grasp the core concepts, but applying them in the real heat of battle? That takes practice. So the final question is, now that you have the gear and the discipline, are you ready to face the giants outside the walls? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay sharp out there.